Well, welcome back everybody to another episode of the Pumped On Property Show. Today we've got one of our favourite clients, Matt, all the way back from Hong Kong, back in Australia here. Thanks so much for joining on to today's conversation. What we're going to talk about is just Matt's journey over the last 20 years since he bought his first property, how property has sort of impacted the decisions that he's made in his life, and you know the plans that he sort of has for his portfolio today and the future to come. And then we also go into a little bit about talking about how that's helped your family and how you've set up your kids with some different investments as well to give them a little bit of a leg up into the future. So really looking forward to getting stuck in. Let's get into it. Easy. Obviously, you started your property journey a bloody long time ago, 20 years ago plus, which you know, it's cool to see somebody that's sort of been consistently working away at achieving their goals and slowly but surely building a portfolio from such a long time ago. But I guess to start, thank you so much for coming on to today's show. Everybody, we've got Matt here. He's one of the clients from Pumped On Property, has purchased a property with us back in 2020, was it?
Oh, yeah.
I think 2020, and he's currently in the process of building a granny flat on that one as well, which will obviously, provide you with really solid positive income. But tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you've been up to for the last 20 years, and 20 years. The family, everything like that as well. You got your wife, Peta, and a couple of young kids as well. Well, 12 and 13, probably not so young anymore, right?
They're not so young, no. So we started, 20 years, sounds so long, doesn't it? But we pretty much were married for a year and then decided we wanted to travel.
Yeah.
And then we just went, there's no way we can afford this. What are we going to do? Let's just get a job, find a hub, and then just travel.
Yeah.
And do it that way. And so I'm a teacher, so I knew that I could sort of get a job in most countries. So, we just sort of bit the bullet and we ended up in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole of life just opened up.
Yeah.
I grew up on a farm, and it was very sort of regional, family, friends were sort of all you knew.
Yeah.
Didn't really know the big city much, going to the footy in Melbourne.
Was it an experience?
Huge trip, yeah.
How good's that?
So we've landed in Hong Kong, and all I knew was a few Bruce Lee films, and that's what I thought Hong Kong was,
Yeah.
And all my family thought I was going to Japan.
Yeah.
So they were always asking, how's Japan going?
How's Japan?
So we literally, I don't even know say that stuff these days, but we just did not know anything about it. So yeah, we ended up landing there, and it was, so before we went there, the best thing we ever did was when we were at uni, actually, we just tried to scrape, and back then the dream was to buy one house. It was the great Australian dream, just to own your own home. So, and the banks were giving out crazy 100% loans, maybe even more. Some people were getting even more than that. So
and this was when exactly? Was this 2002? 2000.
Yeah, this is right on 2000.
The new millennium has just begun, and you're starting your property investment journey.
Yeah.
Well, that was your home first down there in Melbourne?
No, so we wanted to just buy a unit that we could live in,
Yeah. And then you got stuck in, did a little bit of a renovation and things like that, and then you're like, well, let's go travelling.
Yeah, and then let's go travelling. Yeah, so the renovation completely failed. It was a disaster. We tried to put lime white on the floors, and it just ended up being, firstly, it was pine floorboards, so it just pooled in little puddles everywhere. And of course, YouTube wasn't as good back then.
Did it even exist back in 2000? I don't even know.
Didn't watch all the 14 tutorials on how to do it. And disaster. So then I ended up setting a sander alight, because I just went to Bunnings, got a sander, and I'm trying to learn how to do sanding. Yeah. Overheated with all this lime white paint.
Oh, gosh.
So I burnt this sander out, and then the walls didn't really, I tried to do plastering. There's another hot tip.
Don't do it.
Don't try and do plastering. Get a plasterer. So anyway, failed renovation, but we ended up getting there and renting it out and then heading off to Hong Kong.
So is that the unit that you still own down in Melbourne, or did you sell it to buy another one?
No. So what we did was just before we went to Hong Kong, I don't know why we did this because no one else we knew did it, but we used the equity on it. In 1 year, it had gone up probably close to 100 grand.
Wow.
Which
is a lot back then.
Everything was going crazy, yeah. And so we used the equity to buy another one in the next suburb.
Yeah.
And that was the one that we actually wanted to come back and live in.
Yeah.
Because we were only going away for 2 years.
Yeah. So it's sort of like the stepping stones where you start with, a nice unit, renovator, probably a little bit more affordable.
Yeah.
Timed the Melbourne market quite well, but the intention was always to just sort of upgrade from there to a nicer place that you may or may not come back to. You probably thought you were until you found this new amazing place over in Hong Kong, which became home for the next 20 years. So explain what that was like, having a property or two here in Australia whilst living overseas, and just how was that managing those properties? Because a lot of people get quite fearful of investing in interstate or international markets. A lot of people want to buy in their backyard. They want to buy in an area where they know, where they can go and visit the property, where they can manage it themselves. So what was that first part of your journey? Because you were super young back then, probably not earning a great deal of money at the time, but you got, a mortgage and you got tenants to manage. So if you want to break down what that felt like as an investor and living overseas and things like that.
Yeah. So in hindsight, we now know how much of a predicament we put ourselves in. But back then, we sort of felt real carefree. The whole property market was just like, just go and do it, it'll work out. Everyone was just, living the dream.
Yeah.
But so back then, negative gearing was the big thing that you did.
Sure.
Everyone was just like, you have to negative gear.
It's probably pretty new back then as well.
Yeah, it might have been. But it was just, the thing you did. And I didn't even fully understand it. All I just knew was you're making a loss on your property, but somehow it turns out good.
Yeah. I still have a lot of people that reach out and ask about negative gearing, and my opinion these days is I don't value losing money to make money. It's not, it doesn't compute. I've completely
changed. I've completely flipped now that I understand it. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just didn't understand it. And you get drawn into the hype of what's going on.
Yeah, and you just follow what other people are doing, right? Yeah. Because when you're young, you don't have experience. You probably didn't have too much support around you either with the family, friends, and things like that. Yeah. So you just do what other people are doing.
Yeah. So we just did that, and then we pretty much we had to get an agent because we didn't know how to rent it out and everything. So of course we just got an agent, and the trip overseas came in a bit of a hurry. So we hadn't even, when we bought the places, we thought we were going to be living in them, and it all sort of flipped, and that's what happens to people.
Yeah, life changes.
So the agent took over and gave us confidence that they'd rent it out, and so that was all working out fine. And then we just had the worst tenants ever. So in our first couple of years of living in Hong Kong, we literally had one of those nightmare experiences with tenants where they're partying. Like it was a group of 2 or 3 guys coming back after footy training, having huge parties, filling people's bins,
God,
smashing bottles in the driveway. And it was a sort of a townhouse area where the house was. So it's like a community.
Yeah.
And it was just, we were getting emails from neighbours, and it was a nightmare.
That's so frustrating.
And it's not that hard to kick tenants out.
No, not at all.
So we went through the whole process, getting inspections, giving warnings, all of that. Eventually we got to the end of it, but huge damage done to the house.
Wow.
And the neighbours.
Yeah.
Our reputation.
Yeah.
We had to fly
back. This is where
back.
you're planning to come and live as well when you get back.
Exactly. So we had to actually fly back from Hong Kong and go and see the neighbours and just, have
apologise,
just to sort things out, for them to meet us, because they'd never met us either.
Yeah.
Just to see, who are these people that are renting this house out? And so we sort of subdued the situation a bit.
Yeah.
Ended up getting some great tenants after that, but we learnt a valuable lesson in vetting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just so important.
It's not always about the money. It's actually about, valuing your neighbours,
Yeah.
valuing your tenants valuing your property as well, and also having a good property manager that's going to do that for you, so you don't have to stress about it.
Yeah.
And you probably learn that lesson
I
over
was gonna
time as
say
well.
That property manager, we just changed straight away. You have to have someone you can. If you're living overseas, that's the biggest responsibility, really.
Yeah.
With your assets back in another country.
Yeah.
Someone's completely. It's like power of attorney.
Yeah, absolutely.
Managing
Yeah.
stuff for you.
I feel as though that's the same case even if you're investing in your backyard, investing interstate or something like that. Like, you do need a quality team of advisors that you trust that's going to look after that property like it's their own, because, it becomes a business, right? Like, your properties where you just, comes a little bit more autonomous. You don't need to think too much about it as long as you do have that support. But if you don't, you can have real big headaches. Like, that's a pretty bad horror story there. Ben obviously has his horror story with his property on the central coast of New South Wales, where he had a crappy property manager and crappy tenants, and they destroyed the home and everything like that as well. And it is a valuable lesson in life. And, I guess from there, fast forwarding, you're over in Hong Kong, you're working in the international school over there. When did you decide to buy a property over in Hong Kong? Like, when did you decide that you want to stay there long term, and how come?
Well, we started meeting people, really. And as soon as you start meeting people from around the globe, we were just loving it.
Nice.
We just had never met people like this. Opened up our minds to what, the global community's like.
Yeah.
We were traveling and seeing all these new places. It was just amazing. So 2 years rolled over to another 2. Suddenly we're there for... so we went with our best friends as well, and they all eventually came back to Australia. So, of course, you're meeting other people as well, but that was always a little bit of a pull about, whether to go back or not. But, everything was working out. So we really just made the decision. It was all about having kids.
Nice.
Right? So then we're like, okay, we're living overseas. What do we do? Do we go back and have kids there or here? So we just decided, we'll have kids here and just see how it goes. I mean, back then you could travel anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That freedom that we had back in the day, especially living in Hong Kong, right? How accessible the world is from Hong Kong, and just the rest of Asia and Southeast Asia as well.
Yeah. So then the kids were the main agenda, but we had these 2 properties in Australia, and we were living in this amazing place in Hong Kong that, in hindsight, we should have just laid down the cash. Yeah. Because, gold mine.
Yeah.
But you just don't know. So we were way too scared, because we're talking, the property over there is sort of comparable to
Sydney?
Close to $1 million. It would have been close to $1 million Australian.
Wow.
Whereas over here, things were back then 200,000, 300,000.
Yeah, wow. So it's already booming in Hong Kong.
Off the chart money-wise, and we were just too young, and we're like, that's crazy.
Sure.
But in hindsight, should have snapped it up because that was a bargain.
Yeah, exactly.
So we didn't, but we were thinking along those lines of, I wonder if we should one day. So we sold the one in Australia.
Yeah, the first one?
To free up money, the first one.
Yeah.
Our very first little unit that set us up for everything.
Which probably had generated a couple of $100,000 at least in equity by that point.
At least a couple of $100,000, which was good. So we wanted to free up that.
Yeah.
And then possibly use it overseas, which we did eventually use.
Now, timeline-wise, is this getting close to the 2008 global financial crisis when you sell that property? And
we sold it in 2008.
Okay, there you go, which you didn't know about the cycle at the time. It was just coincident, a perfect coincidence that it worked out like that.
Yeah.
And then did you then when did you buy in Hong Kong?
2015.
So you just, parked that money in a bank account for a while and then...
Just use offset.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with what happened in Hong Kong in that period from 2008 to 2012. I don't think it got too affected or...
No, not too bad.
Because business was just booming, right? It's just, it was the place to be.
Yeah, because there's all money's just going through there. It's just a financial hub.
Yeah,
so it didn't really get hit. And China supported it a lot as well.
Yeah.
So we didn't really, the property market and everything didn't get hit at all.
Yeah, wow, that's
It just kept
fascinating.
booming. And it's such a small place, so densely populated, that it's not probably ever going to go down. It'll just plateau.
Sure.
And the graph will just keep going.
Yeah, time will tell, hey?
Who knows? But,
so then in 2015, you purchased your home for your family over in Hong Kong. You got the 2 young kids now. You got the property in Australia. You got the home in Hong Kong. You guys working, loving life, enjoying life. I guess, what was the sort of, when did you start thinking about, property being more of a vehicle to financial independence, having more choices, having more control over your finances and over your life? Was this always something that you thought about, or did it become something that you learned over time with experience?
So by 2008, when we wanted to sell that place, that very first place in Melbourne, that's when we'd figured out that property had got us to where we were.
Sure.
And we'd had a good amount of saving. That was the only way we'd been able to save money.
Okay.
So we were like, the penny dropped.
Yeah.
We're like, this is the way.
Yeah.
And because we understand it.
Yeah.
When you understand it, it makes you confident.
Yeah.
And you've done it before. You
Yeah.
can do it again. Because there is a lot of things to learn along the way.
Absolutely.
We're dealing with solicitors and agents and the process of buying and all of that. And we were dealing with currency exchanges as well, right?
Sure.
If you're international, that sounds like a big scary thing, but it's actually all very straightforward.
Wow.
Once you go through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also just having the really negative experiences for the first 2 properties as well, like that obviously gives you more of a negative association with real estate investing than a positive. But how did you guys just justify holding on to them and dealing with those challenges when they face themselves, when they came up?
Well, we knew, the tenant thing was a big put off, renting out. You put your money into an index fund and you don't have to deal with tenants.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just the physical asset of it was the thing that gelled with us from the start of just owning something.
Yeah.
Because remember, we grew up with the Australian dream.
Yeah.
That was back in so that's always still been a little part of our sort of psychology with it. So we just knew that we had to push on, but we could see this opportunity in Hong Kong with the same idea, owning a property. The aggressive growth and everything is just crazy there, and the opportunity, right? And so in 2008, the penny dropped and we went, we're going to have to buy something in Hong Kong because we just can't just let it sit there.
Yeah, you can see the rent money going to nothing and you just want to, get a piece of the pie.
We just want a piece.
Yeah.
So at this stage, we're not thinking this is going to set us up for life, but it's the thing that this is 10 years on now, and it is helping us save money.
Yeah.
So, got to 2015 and we'd learnt a lot. The whole markets have crashed. We've seen a bit of the cycle. YouTube started. I don't know, you guys, we might have been watching you guys by then. 2015,
2016, 17, we started the YouTube channel. Yeah.
So there was lots more information to learn about things as well. You didn't have to
became a lot more accessible, which probably aligned with your personality type and the way that you like to consume information and learn and stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. As soon as I started being able to learn about negative gearing, positive gearing, currency exchanges, all of that, it was amazing because it just opens your eyes up. Instead of having to ask an agent and then trust that they're on your side, you're starting to understand it yourself.
You're building that awareness and knowledge in your own perspective and you're formulating your own opinions as well. And then sometimes, do you find that it helps when you're listening to all of those different YouTube channels, it makes it easier to formulate your own opinion as opposed to then just sort of blindly putting your faith in somebody else to give you the right information?
Like a broad range.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It then formulates your own opinions, which helps you make better decisions that are in alignment with your goals and your lifestyle and your values.
Definitely. And you see patterns and common themes and you're like, well, you go with the majority.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously, the theme that's running through here.
It works, numbers work.
Yeah. And you start seeing that it works as well. Like this is getting 10, 15 years into homing properties, and we've seen things start to work. And so, you know.
And then you sort of fast forward a couple of years again, and I think you initially reached out in like 1920, maybe just before or during the beginning of the pandemic. I can't remember exactly. And we got to have a really meaningful discussion and started, you know, planning and started putting and formulating a bit more of a strategy, because at that time it felt as though like your life had just sort of naturally unfolded that way. But now it was like, okay, cool, well, you know, your experience has helped you get to here, but now like let's create a strategy that will help you get to where you want to be. So tell us a little bit about that experience and what it was like to start, you know, thinking about property in a different way after listening to the different YouTube channels and educating yourself at a deeper level. You know, what was that transition? Because the penny dropped, I think you said in like 2008, that's when you felt like property was going to be a vehicle. But then what happened in sort of 1920 when you decided to start formulating more of a property investment strategy?
Well, yeah, you're right. It just sort of unfolded for those 15 years. And then we realised that we'd never actually planned anything. We'd always just gone with what we felt at the time. You know, if we couldn't sleep at night or something, we were like, oh, we better do something, 'cause I'm feeling like I should do something. So, and that was when, of course, all this information's coming out. We had never really actually heard of financial freedom and, you know, all those sort of terms. We were like, that was an amazing idea back then. That you could use these investment strategies to be financially free, because you know you grow up and you work and you just work till you retire. Yeah,
you're just sort of on autopilot, like it was the old way of doing things, but there is a different way of doing it.
Yeah. So we heard that, started looking into it, and of course I always love fluffing around with stocks and things as well.
Absolutely.
And you know, I think all the people I've met always lean towards particular, whether it's passions, understanding, whatever it is, but particular avenues of investment. I don't know too many that are just the masters of it all.
No.
So for us, property had been our journey. So we aligned a lot with the idea of this property, you know, building portfolio sort of thing, but we never had a plan. So we were like, these guys, I think, know how to do a plan. They might be the next step in our journey for how to do it. So it was great. I mean, pretty much everything, like we knew a lot of it already. But it just put all the pieces together. And just
when
we were talking, right?
Localized it as well.
And we're over in Hong Kong, and we're really wanting to buy something in Australia, so it was the perfect like avenue for that.
Did you know much about Brisbane when we were starting to talk?
No.
Well, you learn on YouTube, obviously, but like you obviously didn't know too much, didn't have family or friends living there really.
That was the thing. Like we, of course, thought we were going to buy another place in Melbourne. And then we didn't know anything about Brisbane. And actually, that in our whole journey, the whole idea of buying in a different state in Australia was the most scary thing for us.
Wow.
Not even like overseas in Hong Kong, because we're there, right? When you're there,
you can control it.
You feel like you know what's going on.
Sure.
So that was actually the most outrageous thing.
And
looking at Brisbane.
How was it overcoming those challenges? What did you and Peter, was there anything you did in particular, or did you just sort of like, because you had so much experience, you kind of just surrendered and let it go? Or like, did you have to actively work on overcoming those challenges?
No, I think it was really just the conversation that we had and going through logic. We just looked at common sense, the logic of it, the areas around Australia. It just made sense. You know, you just listen to all the information and you try and make the best choice and decision, right? So in our budget, you got to weigh that up as well. Melbourne and Sydney are out of a lot of people's budgets.
They are.
So what's next?
You got to look at your next best alternative, right? You can't do nothing.
No.
Doing nothing won't change anything. You got to do something.
That's right.
So what does your portfolio look like today? You know, what are you holding at the moment?
So leaving Hong Kong, we wanted to leave everything. So we've sold in Hong Kong, and that's finalising now.
Okay.
And that's sold.
Did you make some money over that period of time as well? Yeah,
so
awesome.
So we've used that one in Hong Kong to make good amount of money to be able to hopefully want to buy something when we come back here now.
Yeah, beautiful.
So we've got sort of a 6-month transition, getting money back now, setting ourselves up as we move back.
Yeah.
We'll settle back into that house in Melbourne.
Okay, nice.
We're going to end up back in.
And that's a townhouse down in Melbourne for
Yeah.
now. And are you, I guess, that transitioning to what's next? So back in Australia, you've got this 6 months transitionary period. What does the next, I guess, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years look for you and the family?
Well, we are pretty clueless, really. We're like a lot of people we've met, actually.
Yeah.
We're just at a crossroads.
Yeah.
And we've, looked that we've got some financial security because of a lot to do with the property in Hong Kong.
Nice.
So that's given us
Freedom.
some freedom here in Australia to have some sort of settling in time. But our portfolio at the moment is we have the original house in Melbourne, and we have, through you guys, we bought the place in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And we're currently trying to build a granny flat on that.
Yeah.
So that will be our sort of main investment.
Yeah.
Up here in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And then the money we've got from Hong Kong, we're planning to kind of do it again.
Yeah.
Because our original plan was we wanted to do the 2-house granny flat.
Yeah, the two
strategy.
properties to financial freedom strategy.
Yeah, which we still think is great when you run the numbers and...
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, we were talking just off camera, and it's funny that we're talking about the rental income from the house and the granny flat, and with all the changes from COVID and what's happened with the construction industry and the rental market, when we set that plan in place in 2020, we were expecting it was going to take 15 years to be replacing $1,000 per week. Now, from a gross perspective, within the next couple of years, it should be, returning over $1,000 per week, which is so awesome to hear that that's going to be such a huge player. And it's now that you've taken the action, you've got the property and you're seeing it unfold, even though there's been a lot of headaches trying to build a granny flat over the last couple of years, unfortunately. But you're one that can deal with some challenges and overcome, unfortunately.
There's challenges.
To put it lightly. So, then just looking at, rinsing and repeating, because the blueprint's there, it works.
And it's like everything else, once you've done it, your confidence.
Yep.
Like if we were going to, contact Crystal or you guys again and say, can we do the exact same thing again? You've done it before,
Yeah.
So you feel confident. You could probably take more risks. So, the strategy, we feel really confident with knowing in that regard where we're going.
Yeah.
But life is the thing that we're not sure about.
Yeah, well, at least you're doing the right things, going on a 6-month tour around Australia in the Caravan, you're just setting it up at the moment. So has that always been a goal in life, to do that big trip around Australia? No?
Never. Haven't even thought about it or ever. We wanted to come back to Australia and introduce the girls back to sort of, integrate back into Australia and everything. But we imagined coming back, living in the city, them going to school, meeting people. And COVID has just changed everything because we weren't even going to come back this early. But it sort of pushed us over the edge. We want to come back. And now we thought, well, we've got this perfect window of opportunity because schools in Hong Kong finish in July. Australia starts that same year. They start in January. So they kind of got that little bit of a crossover. So we've just decided 6 months. We're going to join everyone else in Australia by the looks of it. Got a caravan and a car. We're going to go do a lap.
Perfect.
See family that we haven't seen for years as well.
Perfect.
And, try and get off devices and...
Just figure out what next phase of life looks like for you, because it's really awesome to hear the journey of your life, and just that you not putting too much pressure on yourself or the family, and everything sort of worked out for you, even though you have had to overcome challenges and deal with that adversity, but you've still been able to remain positive and happy, and still just enjoying the journey of life and enjoying that process. So I think that's so familiar for so many people. I think we're all just trying to figure it out for ourselves. Like nobody truly has it figured out. The more people that you meet, the more experience that you get, you realise that, you know, we're all just emotional beings that are trying to figure out how to be happier.
That's right. Yeah, and really the biggest thing we've learnt is you got to do it now.
Yeah, be present.
You know, like you can't, because we feel like one of our main things of living in Hong Kong was we wanted to make sure that we lived life, not just go there to earn money or just go there to do one particular thing, but live as well. So you got to spend loads of money to live life.
Absolutely.
And well, you know, you got to spend to sort of be able to do things. So, you know, we have done that. So of course we haven't got as much money as we would like, but
you got assets.
Probably who has. So you got to balance your choices, right? You're making, your life's made up all these decisions that you can make.
Yeah.
And you can't always make good ones, but
as long as you learn from those mistakes though, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're all going to make mistakes. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you avoid making mistakes a second time around. And, you know, you just over time, slowly but surely figure it out. You know, to sort of round today's podcast out, like if you were to, you know, be giving some advice to your daughters or your younger self with what you've learned, you know, what is some advice that you'd give those people?
Well, I would definitely say if you've got the money, buy a property.
Yeah, take action.
I would definitely take action. Yeah, don't sit on the cash.
Yeah.
Make it start working for you.
Yeah.
Because time is like the best asset ever.
Yeah.
You know, like we started young, 20 years. If we started now, it would still work, but it's going to be much harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd say start now. Like for our kids, we've set up index funds.
Nice.
To just start ticking away because time.
Yeah.
Time is their asset. They got loads of time.
Mm.
So we haven't really touched them. We've set them up probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And they just keep ticking away.
So tell me more about that, because not many people talk about, you know, setting these things up. Like a lot of people that I talk to want to invest in property to support their family and to provide for their kids and to help them in the future. What's that strategy with the index fund?
Yeah.
How does this work?
Well, so I personally wouldn't do property for kids.
Okay.
I would go down the index fund route, which is much less maintenance.
Yep.
You can set and forget. Really effective. You know, you're talking between 5-10% historically of returns, and you know, it's something that sort of just compounds over time. So we decided that we wanted. I know that there's been child foundation funds and things in the past that you could set up. Like when I was growing up, there was these like mutual funds and things that you could get, but they just all went bankrupt, and you know, I think they were a disaster from what I heard from my parents. I didn't get any of it.
I think I heard a stat that like there's no like brokerage firm that's actually outperformed the index fund over a 15-year period anyway, unless you're with like Berkshire Hathaway or I forget Ray Dalio's company. Like these guys are killing it, but majority are making you less money than the index anyway.
That's my theory. I don't think that you're going to beat the index funds. So just get some solid ones, just the Australian index funds. I think I've got 3 for each of them. I've got 3, an Australian one, international one, and a commodities one, I think.
Yeah,
like
cool.
A resource one. And my idea is just to not even think about that.
Yeah,
and
just
and let
super
it go.
passive.
Yeah,
it'd be cool. Like you know, a little gift to them when they're born or something like that, or in their first 5 years. You know, get some cash in there, and maybe like for their birthday every year, you throw a little bit more cash into it as well, and then.
Yeah.
Are you okay to share like what you expect that to be when they're like 18, 21? What are the thoughts there?
Yeah, so the current trajectory would be about when they're 18, it'd be close to 20,000 each.
Wow.
That it would have.
It's a lot easier than having to give them 20K when they are 18.
So it's not huge amounts, and I don't know I haven't thought about how you give it to them. Do you just give them 20 grand? But the idea is that it's a nice little lump sum. Like, how much would I have loved to get 20 grand?
Oh, mate,
18?
Absolutely. It would really help. But if you can sort of teach them about budgeting, about saving, about investing before 18.
That's right.
Like we didn't get, but like if you could teach that, then maybe, they will probably know what to do with it better than you would know what to do with it at that point in time.
Leave it and make it keep working. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the idea. And it's not high maintenance to do it.
No, it's not. It's a lot easier. And then for yourself, the next step is really to look at, just enjoying the next 6 months of your life, getting settled back down there in Melbourne, getting a good job again, and then looking at, expanding and looking for that second house in granny flat. So then you'll have the 2 investments providing you with 4 incomes. That portfolio should be entirely paying for itself and a good passive income upon completion. And then just focusing on paying down the debt and reducing it to 0 over time?
Well, so they're the only things. We've made sure we shift all the money out of our house in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So that should be debt-free, the one that we're going to live in, which we think takes so much stress off you. If you're not paying for a mortgage, it just seems to be this huge weight lifted off you. Like we already feel a huge weight lifted off us coming back, knowing that we don't have a mortgage for that house.
Yeah.
And so the investment properties can all have mortgages and deal with themselves.
Yeah.
With the
positive cash flow, they'll reduce the debt themselves. Like if you delay the gratification and just say, I'm not going to take that passive income yet, I'll use that as a debt reduction strategy, and just over time it will sort of, sort itself out.
That's the plan, just let them not take income from it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a one-day thing.
Yeah.
But not immediately.
Nah, I love that. And it's so cool to just hear like that journey. And it's just like the average of Australians' journey through life, right? You don't need to put too much pressure on yourself. You don't need to overwhelm yourself. You don't need to go out there buying 5, 10 properties. Like you can just do it with a small number of high quality properties over a long period of time.
Yeah, we do get FOMO when we hear about these kids who are 22 and they've got 13 properties. And we're like, what did we do wrong? 13.
I wonder what their quality of life is like.
But I don't think you can't just stress yourself out by what other people are doing.
Yeah.
You just got to take all I did was just picked up little bits of advice of what worked for other people, and then you fit it into what your situation is, because you can't replicate what someone else has done.
No, and comparison is the death of happiness as well.
Yeah.
We're all so different. We're all so like individual. We've got different upbringings, different interests, different personalities. Like to think that comparing yourself to somebody is healthy is just sounds silly. Like you really have to figure out your own path, your own journey, and just slowly but surely chip away at it. And it seems as though you and Peter have been able to do that, and it's taken a lot of pressure and stress and probably made it a bit easier to transition through life with going to Hong Kong and then coming back to Australia and supporting the kids, and having that freedom of choice even before you're financially free as well. Like having that ability to just go, well, I am taking 6 months off work, I don't need to rush back into anything because I've got these 2 properties working away for me, one of them's fully paid off, and I can just slow down, and you don't have to keep layering on more stuff.
Yeah, which does take the stress off you.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I love it. Well, thank you so much for jumping on today's strategy session, podcast, and sharing a little bit about your story. I think it just gives people a little bit of a different perspective, and different options that are available out there too. So thanks so much, Matty. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Easy.
Woo!
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Have a spin. Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. That's so nice. Oh.